The foxtrot was the most widely danced social dance of the 20th century, by far. You'll see. You've no doubt heard of the foxtrot, even if you don't dance. And if you are a dancer, you might be surprised by some of the facts that I will be relating here. First, I should define what a foxtrot is. A minor surprise, if you don't already dance foxtrot, is that it isn't a definitive dance step, but it's rather a concept. A foxtrot is a partnered walking dance that is comprised of a pattern of slow and quick steps, with a wide variety of patterns. For instance, slow, slow, quick, quick, slow, slow, quick, quick, slow, slow, quick, quick. For my video examples here, I will often be using videos of my former students, Nick and Melissa Enga. The foxtrot usually travels around the dance floor like that, with some exceptions, and it usually repeats the same timing, with many exceptions in the early years, as you'll see, as the foxtrot changed and evolved over time. That foxtrot timing that I showed you began in the second generation of foxtrots, the 1920s, and it really caught on in the 1940s. To give you an idea of how many different foxtrots there are, just in the short first generation of foxtrots, that's the 5 years from 1914 to 1919, I've collected written descriptions of 96 different foxtrot variations from 151 footwork descriptions in many different timing patterns. Then the variety of foxtrots really took off after that. Okay, where did the foxtrot come from? It evolved from previous social dances. Rarely, if ever, does a social dance materialize from nothing. So let's take a look at those earlier dances. First, who danced back then? All along, then and now, I suppose you could divide people into dance lovers, the minority of the population who especially like dancing, and the general public. In the middle of the 19th century, unlike today, almost everyone social danced in the US and Western Europe, much more so than today, because there was a huge worldwide dance craze that led to the creation of many kinds of partner dances, most of which would be done at a ball, like the waltz and the polka and the schottisch and the gallop and the mazurka and more, along with quadrilles, cotillions, and contradances. Now, the dance lovers would learn many variations of these at a dancing academy or maybe learning from the many available dance manuals for the public. But the average person knew just enough of each dance to have fun. But just about everybody did go out dancing with their friends. But as the century wore on, this wide variety of couple dances simplified to mostly the waltz and two-step by the end of the century, as you can see on these ball cards. The two-step was a smoother version of the polka, and it was the perfect dance for ragtime music. This is what the basic two-step looked like. But the younger dancers were bored with this endless repetition of just two kinds of dances and restless for something new. So that's one of the elements that helped launch the large ragtime era dance craze, boredom with the old dances, at a time when young people wanted to do something new and modern in the new 20th century. So what was new then? The one-step was an American original. The one-step was hugely popular because it was so easy to just walk around the dance floor with a partner, taking one step at a time. This is what the basic one-step looked like. In fact, the one-step was the only dance that many people knew back then, including my maternal grandparents. I remember them dancing the one-step in their living room when I was a child. At that time, you could still divide people into dance lovers and the general public. Dance lovers learned up to a dozen different social dances during the brief ragtime era dance craze, mostly between 1910 and 1915. Here is the wide variety of dances done during the ragtime era, not including the lesser-known novelties like the Furlana, Tatao, Gavotte, Lula Fado, and Paul Jones, while the general public mostly only knew the one-step and two-step, and maybe a waltz. But almost everyone danced then. The one-step quickly spread to Europe. France was one of the many countries that kept the English name, le one-step, instead of translating those two words into French. I should perhaps mention that even though we refer to this time period as the ragtime era, you wouldn't actually hear that many classic rags played at a social dance. Most music for dancing was specifically written for these new dances, usually written by Tin Pan Alley composers like Irving Berlin, for example. Dancers preferred to dance to a clear, steady beat instead of heavily syncopated rags. Okay, back to our story. The foxtrot was the final big ragtime era dance to hit, just before World War I began in the autumn of 1914. The foxtrot first appeared in that summer. Who created it? Well, the most widely published story is that it was created by the vaudevillian Harry Fox, but probably not. That might surprise some people, since it's such a widespread belief. The stories that get passed on are usually the ones that are fun to tell, maybe to surprise someone. Back then, everyone knew about the animal dances, like the turkey trot, grizzly bear, bunny hug, camel walk, among many others. So people tended to assume that the foxtrot was another animal dance. So it sounded erudite to inform that no, it was named after a person named Fox. And it might indeed have been named after Harry Fox, but he apparently didn't create that dance. He was a singer, not a partner dancer. And when he pranced around the stage, it was with a line of chorus girls. The Harry Fox story, that was created by others. And to give them credit, that was a reasonable assumption. As far as I know, Fox himself never claimed to have invented it. He was in the business of self-promotion, being an entertainer. And if he had created the foxtrot, he certainly would have claimed it. In 1914, Joan Sawyer claimed to have invented the foxtrot, as you see here in her 1914 booklet called How to Dance the Foxtrot. Joan Sawyer, originator of this season's most popular dance. And this ad. The foxtrot was originated and danced first by me at my Persian garden in New York and later in vaudeville. And I believe that she was telling the truth, that she did originate a foxtrot on her own, several different foxtrots. Joan Sawyer was a dancer who was also a composer, writing Persian Garden Tango, among others, and a choreographer, creating new dances, a nightclub owner, running the Persian Gardens Ballroom, and a notable feminist who toured the country campaigning for women's rights. In her Foxtrot booklet, she describes 4 different Foxtrot steps, each with a different step timing. This is the earliest book published on the Foxtrot, but I hadn't seen this book listed in any other bibliography or library, so I scanned my copy and put it online. You can find it as a free download on richardpowers.com. I will soon tell you why I believe Joan Sawyer's story, but then it gets more interesting. The earliest mention of the Foxtrot dance that I found so far is this copyright submission for the song The Carolina Foxtrot by the African-American composer Will Vaudrey, July 8, 1914. 10 days later, this article in the July 18th New York Clipper newspaper announced that Jeanette Warner and Billy Kent originated a new dance step called the Foxtrot, quote, which threatens to prolong the life of the dancing craze indefinitely. And that comment was remarkably prescient, for that prediction came true. That article also claimed that the Carolina Foxtrot was composed in honor of the originators of this new step. Here is the cover of the Carolina Foxtrot, stating that Billy Kent and Jeanette Warner originated the new dance, with a drawing of Kent and Warner wearing fox ears and being admired by a fox. Now, it might surprise you to hear that I also believe that story, that they came up with a foxtrot on their own without knowing about Joan Sawyer's version. If that sounds confusing, just bear with me. And the music, Carolina Foxtrot, indeed appears to be the first published foxtrot song, months before many other foxtrot songs came along. Unfortunately, Kent and Warner's dance step was never described. If I may digress, in a few minutes, I will tell 2 stories of some people who each separately claim to have named the new dance Foxtrot after Harry Fox. But notice here the possibility that Kent and Warner did name their foxtrot after the animal, not a person named Fox. The mystery deepens. Now, here is another story about a possible origin of the name Foxtrot. Nick Enga discovered that if you do a word search through all newspaper sources before 1914 for Foxtrot, going way back, you find many references not to a dance, but to the unique gait of the Missouri Foxtrotter horse breed, a gait which mixes slow, smooth walking and quick trotting. Aha! Is that a coincidence? Or did someone in 1914 know about Missouri Foxtrotter horses, which had been around for a long time, and their unique way of trotting? Now, I wasn't actively looking for an answer to that question, but 3 weeks ago, I just happened to come across this article by Philip J.S. Richardson in London's Dancing Times magazine, describing the earliest days of the foxtrot. I should preemptively let you know that one of the very first descriptions of the foxtrot that Richardson had received back in 1914 was from the American dancing master F. Leslie Clendenin, who happened to believe that Harry Fox did create it. So Richardson had accepted that as fact. Okay, here is what he wrote about the foxtrot. Quote, "It has an eponymous hero in the person of one Harry Fox, who was among the first to introduce it to the vaudeville stage. But the suggestion that it was named after the gait or pace of a horse, known in the West as the foxtrot, is a much more plausible one." So yes, people did know about the Missouri Foxtrotter horse back then. Moving on, the famous blues composer W.C. Handy wrote in his autobiography that the foxtrot was created by African American dancers when he played his Memphis blues slowly. And I also believe that story. You'll soon see why I'm not contradicting myself. African American composer James Reese Europe told essentially the same story, but he said it was created by different Black dancers when he played a slower version of one of his tunes, meaning too slow for a one-step. And I also believe his story. And Huey Wolford was another Black composer who much later in this 1937 interview claimed that the foxtrot was created in 1914 when dancers tried to dance to one of his songs, the Trouville Canter. Wolford claimed that he was the first one to call it a foxtrot in honor of Harry Fox, who was there sitting in his audience that night. To clarify, not created by Harry Fox, but Wolford said that he named it to honor his presence there. So exactly who, there at that party that night, created it? Wallace McCutcheon and Vera Maxwell, shown here, claim to have invented the foxtrot when they tried to dance to Huey Wolford's Trouville Canter. That song was published 2 months after Kenton Warner danced to the Carolina Foxtrot. And yes, I can believe that McCutcheon and Maxwell also came up with the idea of a foxtrot on their own. Here's a photo in my collection from a French newspaper crediting Jack Harris as the inventor of the foxtrot. Okay, we can add him to the list. And there were no doubt even more dancers that claimed to have invented the foxtrot that I haven't discovered yet. I can just see myself 10 years from now saying, wow, back in 2025, I only knew 8 foxtrot origin claims. And I'm not actually eliminating Harry Fox as a possible foxtrot originator. Most of us don't think he did. But as I already mentioned, back in 1914, dancing master F. Leslie Clendenin wrote that the foxtrot was created by Harry Fox. So we don't know with certainty whether that was just the obvious guess, associating this new dance with a well-known entertainer, or if Clendenin actually knew something. Don't you just love unsolved mysteries? Personally, I don't think it makes any difference whether Harry Fox's name is added to the list of originators or not, because the greater picture is that many dancers at that time came up with a foxtrot concept independently. One problem with these origin stories, in my opinion, is that they all assume that only one person created the foxtrot and that they know who that one person was. And I think that's an understandable assumption, since most inventions have only one inventor, and then other people copy that original invention, right? So why doesn't the foxtrot fit into that normal creation dynamic? The reason why I believe all of these different origin stories about both Black and white dancers independently creating a foxtrot is because when you're trying to dance to music that is too slow or too fast for a one-step, combining slow and quick steps is the only thing that works well. It's such an obvious solution that many dancers would have thought of it on their own, and many did. You would have thought of it if you were there back then, and that wouldn't have been a new concept for you. You would have probably known about the schottische or tango or gavotte or some other previous dance that combined slow and quick steps, and you would have simply applied that idea to this tempo of dance music. And then when you read in the newspapers all this excitement about the new foxtrot, you would have thought, oh, I already thought of that on my own. I just didn't call it a foxtrot. But I do believe that they each came up with the idea on their own, and that's what counts. It was way back when I was in college, taking classes in design and the creative process, that I first came across this quote. Originality is thinking of something that you've never thought of before, not something that has never been thought of by anyone. Now, I believe this theory about many different dancers independently coming up with the idea of dancing a combination of slow and quick steps to that tempo of music. I believe this for a long time. But just this month, in preparing for this talk, I reread a newspaper article that I had in my files written by Vernon Castle. Vernon and Irene Castle were America's most famous and influential dancing couple at that time. And the significance of what he said jumped out, more so than when I first read it years ago. Vernon wrote this just 2 months after his first foxtrot description, and it perfectly validates this multiple creators theory. So writing about this new foxtrot, Vernon said, quote, I should like you to listen to the music. The natural inclination is either to dance very fast steps, double time to the music, or very slow steps with it. But it seems to me that one way is too fast and the other too slow. The only real solution is to combine the two. By doing this, you not only make the dance comfortable, but you also make it possible to do a great variety of easy and amusing steps. Close quote. Half a year later, the very young Arthur Murray made the same point more succinctly in a 1915 newspaper article. Quote, the foxtrot was not an accident, but a necessity, meaning that it was the necessary solution to do a walking dance to that tempo of music, which didn't work for a one-step. And there was dance music of all tempos back then, including, of course, in the foxtrot range. And one more thing. When I said that the very first mention of a foxtrot was in July 1914, there is no reason to think that all of the other creations of foxtrot, of that concept, happened in that year, 1914. No, it could have happened at any time after the one-step came along, going back a decade earlier or more. Probably was by many black and white dancers thought of that obvious idea. So people dancing that concept probably did predate 1914. Okay, so who first named it foxtrot? We can never know for sure. Maybe it was one of those previous theories, but I think one of the more likely stories is that of Oscar Durier for his act on the theater's rooftop dance pavilion, which immediately followed Harry Fox's vaudeville show. Many of the theatergoers would come up to the rooftop for drinking and dancing. Oscar Durier was a partner dancer with a stage show up there. And he said that one night he was just too tired to do all of that prancing that Fox did, so he just walked a few steps and then pranced a few. Then he saw some of the rooftop patrons trying that on the dance floor, and it caught on. Durier named it after Harry Fox, Fox's Trot, since Harry Fox was the theme of his act. As I mentioned, almost none of the creation stories actually describe the dance step, but Durier almost did, with an approximate description of walking, then trotting. Among the 8 to have claimed to have created the foxtrot, only Joan Sawyer described her actual footwork. And as you remember, she described 4 different kinds of foxtrot steps. The foxtrot was promoted by Vernon and Irene Castle in their own version, the Castle Foxtrot. Then within only a few months, the foxtrot really took off in popularity by all social classes, young and old, black and white, rich and poor, urban and rural. First in the States, of course, then soon in London and Paris, who liked to dance the latest American fads. The foxtrot became so popular that some earlier musical compositions were retitled as foxtrots to sell the music better. And it looks like this trot and one step was rather hastily retitled as a foxtrot, and not very carefully. Would you like to see some of the earliest foxtrots? I will show a video of the earliest foxtrot described, and it's based on the one step. 4 slow walking steps, then 8 quick trotting steps in a straight line with a follow or lady backing. Repeat it. We might call it a 4+8 foxtrot. Here it is. I'm calling that the original foxtrot because it's the version in all 3 of the earliest foxtrot footwork descriptions in October and November 1914. The July through September mentions of the new foxtrot didn't describe any footwork. Vernon Castle also described that earliest 4+8 foxtrot in a November 1914 newspaper article. Then, 1 month later, he shortened that to only 2 slow steps and 4 quick trots. That was the Castle Foxtrot, famously described in the December issue of Ladies' Home Journal. Here we see it demonstrated by Charles Worsley with Ruth Evans. The basic step and some variations. Johnny pulled on an automobile. He took his sweetheart for a ride one Sunday. Johnny was all up in his best Sunday clothes. She was supposed to disguise. Things went just dandy till we got down the road. But I don't think that women like to be pushed backwards at high speeds for 3 or 4 minutes, even the 2+4 Castle Foxtrot. So this straight trot foxtrot died out in only a few years, rarely seen after 1916. Next, here is an early foxtrot that caught on, more so than the straight trots. Oscar Duryea, one of those foxtrot originators, wrote, quote, "Eventually, the public, still liking the slow-timed walking steps, substituted the 2-step for the quick running steps." And that word eventually was actually only a matter of months later. 4 different sources described this newer version at the end of 1914 and early 1915. It is 4 walking steps and 2 two-steps. You remember the 2-step was like a smooth polka step. Here it is, the basic step and a variation. And then the 2-step all by itself became a foxtrot because it is technically a combination of slow and quick steps. That was first described as a foxtrot step in 1915. But the 2-step especially caught on as a foxtrot in 1919 as the straight jazz and the jazz roll, then more so in the 1920s and 30s, like this. The 2-step was my dad's go-to foxtrot in the 1940s. My parents met at a Tommy Dorsey dance, dancing the foxtrot. Okay, let's move on to another story about the earliest foxtrots. The very first foxtrots described in dance manuals were usually complicated sequences, like small choreographies. This was because these books were written by dance teachers, and that's what dancing masters did at that time. I already mentioned that Joan Sawyer described a 4-part foxtrot, which she said had to be memorized, and each part had a different timing. In a November 1914 newspaper article, Edna Neal described a different 4-part foxtrot, and the next month, the New York Society of Teachers of Dancing held their annual convention, which taught Edna Neal's 4-part foxtrot almost unchanged, not titled as somebody's foxtrot, choreography like Edna's Foxtrot, but simply titled as The Foxtrot. By the way, this is another scan that I put on my download page that you can access if you wish. Each of those 4 parts had a different timing. So here's a video of Tracy and I dancing that 4-part foxtrot as taught by the American National Association of Masters of Dancing at that conference. Notice that it begins with that earliest timing of 4 slow and 8 quick steps. Then notice the constantly changing timing patterns as you wonder how the follow would possibly know that each of those timing changes were coming if it were danced improvised at a dance party with someone you don't know.
A slow, 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 slow. Quick, 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 turn quick, 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 slow, slow, quick, 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 slow, 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 slow. Quick, quick, slow, lead back, quick, quick, slow, slow, and then quick, 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 slow, slow.
You can see that those foxtrots weren't followable in improvised, freestyle social dancing. These short choreographies had to be learned and practiced with a partner who had also learned it. So, was this play or was this work? Well, it was a bit of both, but for a professional dance teacher, it was their work. And that attitude is evident in these choreographed patterns to be practiced, rather than emphasizing spontaneity, which is an important part of the definition of play. Vernon Castle never learned that formal tradition. He never belonged to a Dancing Masters Association. He never attended a convention. He started as a slapstick stage comedian and then, step by step, became one of the most successful social dance performers of his time, performing his versions of the latest new ragtime era dances with his wife, Irene. He wasn't a dance teacher yet. At the beginning, Vernon and Irene were exhibition dancers. Now, Irene hated to learn and practice routines, and she stated this fact in her memoirs. She would rather just dance, and she was quite good at following whatever Vernon led. She would rather play than work. Vernon no doubt learned that to be followable by Irene, a dance had to stay with one timing pattern for a while, maybe going in different directions with that one timing pattern, as you saw Charles and Ruth do. In other words, Vernon Castle knew that a social dance had to have a basic step. Now, if you're a social dancer today, you take that idea of a basic step for granted. But don't take that for granted. The dancing master choreography system, where the timing is constantly changing, that still exists today in many ballroom dance studios. And it did in the ragtime era. The Castle Foxtrot was different. It was spontaneously leadable, meaning that it was followable. It was more play than work. And then later, in the 1920s and 30s, the evolving foxtrot would go in that direction of a continued, repeated timing pattern. Okay, moving on. Vernon Castle was unfortunately killed in a flight training accident toward the end of World War I, but one of his students continued his tradition of leadable foxtrots. The teenage Arthur Murray graduated from the Castle Normal School of Dance in New York City in 1914, studying with Vernon Castle. Then he moved to Asheville, North Carolina that same year and started teaching dance classes right away and writing a series of dance description articles for the Asheville Citizen newspaper, with his first article on how to dance the one-step in December 1914. He was just 19 years old that year. So Arthur Murray continued Vernon's more recreational approach for another 50 years. When Murray retired in 1964, the corporation that bought the franchise turned Arthur Murray Studios into a competition-based format. But Arthur Murray himself never mentioned competition ballroom dance in any of his 64 books. He only taught non-competitive social dance as play. Now, remember my comment that during the ragtime era, dance lovers learned about a dozen different dances, but the general public only knew how to dance the one-step? Now it was the one-step and the foxtrot that the general public danced. Here are some dance cards from that time. One-steps and foxtrots, with occasional waltzes. Here's another. Okay, take a look at this dance card from 1923. All foxtrots. Here's another. What? Did they really just do one kind of dance repeatedly all night long? No, and here's the story. And this might surprise you, because I've seen it surprise many dancers who come to vintage balls. Okay, let's say that the band is playing dance music from the 1920s, and the band leader announces that the next dance is a foxtrot. He said that because that's what his sheet music says, foxtrot. Let's say Zulu Whale Foxtrot, 1927. Here's an original recording of it. And because it was announced to be a foxtrot, the dancers try to dance a foxtrot. And they get frustrated and angry because the music is way too fast for a foxtrot. Can you imagine you trying to do this? I sped up this video to that tempo. That's ridiculous. So those dancers tried to do that and got angry that the band was playing a foxtrot way too fast. They got angry because they didn't know what happened back around 1919. World War I was over and everyone resumed dancing. They still wanted to be modern and do the latest dances, but those ragtime era dances, they weren't just 5 years ago. They were an era ago. They were back before the war. Therefore, they were no longer modern. But the foxtrot had come along just at the very end of the dance craze, just as the war was starting. So the foxtrot really wasn't one of those old ragtime dances. It was newer. But one thing that doesn't change is that people like dances that are easy and fun. And the one step was the easiest dance possible and very much fun. So what would you do if you loved dancing the one step, but you didn't like the old name one step? Well, the new name Foxtrot was fashionable. Yes, you would dance the one step and call it a foxtrot. And that's exactly what many people did. At that same time, in order to sell music, publishers and record producers relabeled one-step music as foxtrots because that name was so popular and would sell better, as you saw with that Castle House rag. Here's another song, That's My Weakness Now, labeled as a foxtrot. That's clearly a one-step. The dance teachers complained that, no, you're dancing a one-step, not a foxtrot, but the dancers didn't care. They wanted to be modern and call it a foxtrot. The band leaders were a bit confused at first. Which foxtrot do you want? Then they settled into playing fast foxtrots, which were actually one-steps given a new name, and slow foxtrots, where actual foxtrot steps would be done. Occasionally, a dance card would specify the difference, but usually not. Pretty soon, everything in 4/4 time would be labeled as a foxtrot, including swing dancing, when that came along. Every swing tune was labeled as a foxtrot on both the sheet music and the records, which you know if you're a dance musician. Continuing to rock and roll, rock around the clock, foxtrot. Now, to step back with an overview. Did you know that the ragtime era and jazz age dance crazes were huge in terms of how many people social danced? Almost everyone went out dancing. It wasn't questioned. Dancing was just a part of one's social life back then, often going out to dine and dance clubs, which were huge. Here is a part of my collection on dine and dance club matchbook covers. Every city and even small towns had them. So when almost everyone dances, the steps must be easy enough for everyone to do. When you study the evolutionary patterns of large dance crazes, you see that the popular dances simplify to just the right degree. Not so easy that they're boring, but definitely not too difficult. These earliest foxtrot choreographies never caught on because they were too difficult. Vernon Castle and then Arthur Murray and others simplified them to the point where they were leadable, followable in informal, improvised social dancing. The tango never caught on with the general public because it was too complicated, and each tango step had a different timing. Now, the dance lovers, a much smaller percentage of the population, they did learn the tango, but most people didn't. The one-step and foxtrot were their go-to dances, or I should say the real foxtrot and the fast foxtrot, which was really the one-step. Now, in England, they did develop a very fast foxtrot. They called it the quickstep, which eventually made its way back to the United States from British-influenced ballroom dance studios. But in the 1920s and 30s, and later, most Americans preferred to dance the simple one-step to that faster tempo of music, while calling it a foxtrot, of course. Now, in mentioning the British quickstep, here is another little-known fact that may surprise you, especially if you're a ballroom dancer. You may think that British ballroom dance teachers were proud of their new creation, the quickstep, back in the 1920s. But you'll be surprised to hear the opposite was true. Almost every British ballroom dance teacher hated that dance at first and tried to suppress it for many years. It's true. Here's the story. At first, it was called the Quicktime Foxtrot, and I looked through my issues of the British Dancing Times magazine. I have all of the issues from the 1920s, 30s, and 40s. So I did this to track the quick step, and I discovered that at first, the editor, Philip J.S. Richardson, and the English dance teachers denounced it. An October 1924 article blamed the Quicktime Foxtrot on the American dance bands who were playing in London, which were playing foxtrots too fast, having, quote, done a great deal of harm to the English way of dancing foxtrots. Now, for a while, this had been called the fast foxtrot, quick foxtrot, and mostly the quicktime foxtrot. There were occasional ads in the magazine for dance teachers teaching it, but mention of the quick foxtrot was relatively rare and never featured. Then, in the next month's Dancing Times, November 1924, an article reported a meeting of Richardson and 200 teachers, orchestra leaders, and dance hall owners at which they agreed to call the fast foxtrot the quick step, to help dancers realize there were two very different kinds of foxtrot. But after that article, there were still very few mentions of any dance teachers teaching it. To clarify, this official decision to call it quickstep was not condoning it. It was only to alert dancers to the fact that there were two kinds of foxtrot so that they wouldn't be confused. The dancing masters' protests against the quicktime foxtrot continued throughout 1925. An article in the February 1926 issue said, quote, since the so-called fast foxtrot is universally disliked by both teachers of dancing and the dancing public, is it not about time that both teachers and the public assert themselves and make orchestras understand that they are the servants of the public and not the public the servants of the orchestras? So that article proposed that the Imperial Society of Teachers of Dancing somehow compel orchestras to play foxtrot music slower. But that article, claiming that teachers of dancing and the dancing public universally disliked it, that was written by a teacher. And it turns out that he just wanted to believe that the public didn't like dancing it, because he didn't. An article in December 1926 was still complaining about this, but the tide had been turning for a while. Then, in ads in the back of the March and April 1927 issues, Victor Sylvester advertised it for the first time that he was teaching the quickstep. It wasn't featured. It was mentioned third after his teaching the new American Charleston and Black Bottom, but Victor Sylvester was a very influential dance teacher then. And he also included the quickstep in a dance manual for the first time that year. But an article in November 1927 Dancing Times magazine was still debating fast foxtrot tempos, mentioning the ongoing efforts to slow down foxtrot tempos, but it called these efforts, quote, a perfectly fruitless undertaking because, quote, dancers in the smart ballrooms preferred the fast foxtrot. Yes, several articles throughout those years had been indicating that the people actually liked the quicktime foxtrot or quickstep. It was the professional dancing masters that were trying to squash it. Then the Dancing Times finally condoned the quickstep with an illustrated description of a quickstep variation, the Bradley drag, in the July 1928 issue. And soon thereafter, it appeared in ballroom dance competitions. But that was a very long, sustained period of resistance to the quickstep. Okay, for my next foxtrot topic, let's return to the young Arthur Murray in the early 1920s, when he was in his 20s. I would describe him at that time as a true dance geek, and I say that as a compliment. He loved to collect foxtrot variations as they were evolving and describe them in his many mail-order dance manuals, which came out almost every year, sometimes several editions in one year. Now, if you happen to dance today's foxtrot, you will be interested in his foxtrot variation called the 2-and-1, described in the 1922 edition of his book, Modern Dancing. Here is a video of it. You will see that it's a two-step to one side, side, close, side, and a single walking step to the other side, 2 and 1. Quick, quick, slow, slow, quick, quick, slow, slow. That was an unusual rhythm at that time of 6 quick counts, dance against the 4 counts of the music. That shifting off the downbeat actually keeps it more interesting. Is it followable? Yes, easily. Side steps are the easiest to follow. Then you can do variations that keep this quick, quick, slow, slow timing, like rotating or promenade or a grapevine. Now, if you happen to be a social dancer, you'll recognize that foxtrot as almost today's most common foxtrot timing, which is slow, slow, quick, quick. Now, Arthur Murray first described that timing as a foxtrot step in 1937, calling it the collegiate swing. And 4 years later, he renamed that same step Magic Rhythm. And then in 1944, he renamed it the Magic Step, and that name stuck. Here it is. You'll see it's quite similar to the earlier 2 and 1 foxtrot. Slow, slow, quick, quick, slow, slow, quick, quick, slow, slow, quick, quick. Arthur Murray wrote at that time in 1944, quote, "After 25 years of teaching, I made an astounding discovery. Believe it or not, 75% of all popular steps are merely variations of this easy step," close quote. And I've indeed found several examples of that timing long before 1944. Here is one from 1925, a British dance created by Maurice Vert called the 6-4, meaning a 6-count pattern against 4 counts of music. I first discovered this step in this 1925 article in the Dancing Times magazine. Then I was happy to find a film of Maurice Vert himself dancing it. Slow, slow, quick, quick, slow, slow, quick, quick, slow, slow, quick, quick, slow, slow, quick, quick, slow, slow, quick, quick. That magazine article said that, quote, "It labors under a considerable disadvantage." And indeed, it didn't catch on in England back then. Little did they know that one generation later, it would become the go-to foxtrot in the US as it evolved from the 2 and 1 into the magic step and therefore finally accepted in England. So I know that this part of my talk is more for social dancers and historians watching today. So let me continue with one more fun fact for them. Then I'll return to an overview for everyone in a few minutes. A few years ago, Walter Nelson put some very helpful videos on YouTube, especially helpful for dance historians. He watched through many early 20th century films looking for any dance scenes. Then he excerpted just those dance scenes. Thank you, Walter. If you want to find his videos, just go to YouTube and enter Walter Nelson, Wallywood Pictures. So to prepare for today's talk, I once again went through Walter's list of video clips of early foxtrot, and I found this clip that I'm about to show you, which apparently no one else had noticed before either. By the way, it's from a silent film, which, as you know, appears speeded up when played on modern projector. So I slowed it down to the real tempo and added music at exactly that tempo so that you can hear that it's one-step music. Only one couple is doing this special step. So watch the couple at the very far left as they come in. That's from a 1925 American silent film, Wolf Blood, the very first werewolf film. So that couple is doing a very fast 2 and 1, you could say. Kind of a magic step, almost 20 years before the name Magic Step, which Arthur Murray did say had been around for decades. But here it was danced to very fast one-step music. Here it is again, slowed down to half speed. Slow, slow, quick, quick, slow, slow, quick, quick, slow, slow, quick, quick. For the historians watching, this is not the British quickstep. The quickstep was and is a complex series of figures. This is just a step repeated. Walk, walk, shuffle, walk, walk, shuffle. Very American. And this is one-step tempo, which is faster than the quickstep. Then, as I looked further, I found that same step in another 1925 American silent film, Lady of the Night. Now, this clip doesn't show anyone's feet to see their actual footwork timing, but you can very clearly see what their footwork timing is by the timing of the man leading his partner. Here it is, and I'm using Remaster Cinema's edit because it was stabilized and at real speed. Most of the couples are clearly doing a swaying one step, but one couple about to come in are doing 1, 2, chasse, walk, walk, 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 chasse, walk, walk. Slowing down to half speed, they're dancing walk and chasse, walk and chasse, 1, 2, 3, and 1. So for the vintage dancers here, have you ever done that as the mid-20s one-step variation? I've not seen that one before. Okay, that's the end of my section for vintage dancers and historians. I hope the rest of you also found that somewhat interesting. Now, this next one won't surprise you, especially if you've danced Foxtrot. But in discussing dance history here, I don't want to skip the essential fact that dancing the Foxtrot was and is fun. It's hard to describe the subtle bliss of walking to music, holding someone in your arms in exact synchronicity with that person. You feel connected to them in an easygoing, nonverbal way. If you're a social dancer, you know what I mean. Now, the kind of partnering that you experience in the Foxtrot is very different than in swing dancing and salsa, tango, and most social dances. Now, I want to be careful about how I phrase this wonderful kind of partnering because I don't want to be dismissive of the other kind of partnering. They're both good, but in very different ways. But most social dances are constant leading and following of figures. The lead must think of a new figure every 2 to 4 seconds and be very clear in signaling each figure to their partner. And follows often tell me that that kind of feels like answering a multiple choice quiz constantly. Got that one, missed that one. They enjoy the challenge, but they say it kind of feels like they're being tested. So in this sense, the lead and follow have opposite dynamics. But with the Foxtrot and similar dances like a simple waltz, both dancers are simply moving together in synchronicity as equals. Irene Castle described this as floating around the floor like two persons sharing the same mind. More follows than leads tell me how much they love dancing Foxtrot. And I think it's because of two people sharing the same connection, the same experience in the same way. Many leads feel that they must be doing something, leading something interesting. Well, I enjoy leading, but I also love the more equal connection. You feel attuned to your partner, which feels wonderful. And that's what people discovered back in the ragtime era with the Foxtrot. And that concludes my talk on the Foxtrot. I hope you enjoyed it.